All right, it seems that we are live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I'm your co-host and co-founder of Liberty First Foundation, Frank Johnson. Also host of the ever-popular Range Report Gun Review channel on YouTube. And to my right is Michael Vasquez, dragon of the entire New York tier, New York's only independent journalist. As you notice, we got a little bit of a short-handedness in personalities this week. We all have jobs. Some of us, unfortunately, have to work a little late every now and then, especially now during the holiday season. But Vass and I, your intrepid hosts, are here this evening to bring you some of the news and the what-fors of the week so far. Vass, you had something in the chat before about a video game. I have no idea what you were talking
about. It's actually been developing. It's a developing story. So, sorry, just updating here. So let's see if I can point this out. Here we go. There's a video game that's being banned in the United Kingdom right now. And that's, you can see it on the screen right now. It was banned it was created in 2022. Nobody knew about it. No one cared. It had no players. No one was buying it. No one cared about it. And then this game, Fursan Al Aska, after the October 7th, 2023 massacre, the terrorist attack by Hamas that killed 1,200 people, killed 32 Americans, killed 17 British, wound up with 22 Americans being taken hostage, 9 British being taken hostage, and still held to this day. This game put in an update and allows players to relive and to participate in that massacre, in that terrorist attack. The game is based on being a member of Hamas, and the member of Hamas is supposed to be the good guy. It is real world. It is based on real world. You are a member of Hamas. You're going into Israel. You are committing acts of terror. You are a terrorist. And this is supposed to be the positive of the game. And then they got the update after October 7th to let people play and kill as if they were there in Israel on October 7th. Obviously, when people finally caught attention of it this month, the United Kingdom said that's anti-Semitic. It is pro-terrorism. And no, they're not going to allow that to be seen in the United Kingdom. Well, as it turns out, they weren't the only ones to have that opinion, because on December 6th, and then again on December 10th, there was wrong one. There was a response by Congressman Richie Torres. Now, Richie Torres is a Democrat, but he is a pro-Israel Democrat. He's anti-Hamas. He's against terrorism. And so he came out and said, no, this should not be allowed to be sold in the United States. And he's telling Valve Corp, which is the owner of Steam, which is an online distribution and store for video games. And he's telling them, you know what, remove this. This has been blocked in several countries, most recently in the United Kingdom. And you know what? It should be removed in the United States. But he's not doing that as a congressman. It's not a law. He's just saying it's just good business. Just remove it. Just ban this game. Now, the question is this a violation of the First Amendment? Is this a violation of free speech? And I have to say, in my opinion, no, it's not a violation of free speech. And this is something that we should be asking Valve Corp to do, because supporting terrorism only creates more terrorism. Justifying terrorism creates more terrorism. And enabling terrorism to be seen as a fantasy, as a game, to diminish the murders and death that terrorism creates is bad for the world. Now, the guy who's doing this, he's Brazilian, so he's not an American, so he's not entitled to the First Amendment. He doesn't have that protection. He can't claim that that's something that should allow his game to be played or to be bought. And by the way, it has a grand total all-time high of 24 people playing the game. That was last week. That's after the UK banned it. That's after Congressman Torres came out and said this should be removed. It got all of the attention, 24 people. I think it should be. I think it should be banned.
All right, this is the first I'm hearing about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to disagree with you.
Why? I had trouble with this as well, by the way. I did
listen, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I spent the whole weekend here at the house arguing with an individual about terrorism and its origins, its funding, the mechanisms, and everything else that goes along with it. And there is an awful lot of sympathetic characters when it comes to the way people look at things, and unjustifiably so. And I am not somebody who's about to defend anything that Hamas does or any other organization, especially people who know my history with the people that I've lost to terrorism and the people that I've known that I've lost to terrorism. But I'm gonna have to say, listen, you can't. This is going to be a matter of trying to regulate people's behavior if you try and ban something. And if you try and ban something like this, listen,
Yeah.
You're going to want to jump in on me.
No, I'm listening.
If you're going to ban something like this, there's going to be hundreds of other games that you're going to have to ban that also allow you to put yourself in the footsteps of what you determine to be, or what most people would determine to be, the evil player. There are Call of Duty games that go back for World War I, World War II, and all the rest of it that allow you to take to play the role of the Nazi. There are games that allow you to take and put yourself in the position of other various criminal organizations and allow yourself to put yourself in the footwork of other terrorist organizations. Mm-hmm. When you try to ban stuff like this, you said it yourself, there's 24 people playing this thing. Nobody knows this thing is there. So what is happening if you start making this thing into some sort of scapegoat? You're going to drive publicity towards it, and you're going to drive people consumerism to it. You're going to drive people to go find it and act and become part of it, and you're going to make it more popular than it would be. And when you start coming down and saying, this is what people are allowed to play, this is what people are not allowed to play, regardless of whether or not the guy who created the game or the distribution company is subject to First Amendment protections, the people in the United States are subject to First Amendment protections. If they want to play that game, if they want to go in, they want to buy the game, they want to register, they want to play it, if you're telling them, no, you can't do that, you're violating their First Amendment by taking away that option for them.
Okay, so let me address a couple of the concerns, because I trust me, when I was doing the research on it and when I did my video on it, I was running into the same questions. But in terms of, are there video games that allow you to be the bad guy? Absolutely. Are those games based on fact? Some of them are historical fact. Yes. Are they current day terrorism? No. There aren't. There are fictional worlds and fictional actions, yes, but not real world attacks, real terrorism, targets, actions, murder, and not based on absolute horrific massacres. That isn't in the gaming world. That doesn't exist. So there is an exception here. It's not the same thing. This is taking advantage of and mimicking and trying to glorify and in fact turn into a positive the terrorist actions that have affected the entire world. And I'm sure in Harvard and Columbia they would love this. And I am torn on it because there is free speech, of course, but there are also consequences and there are still restrictions because I'm a near absolutist. And the restriction is those things that incite and promote violence. And that's and what we're seeing here. And this is by the description of the game. I went to the game itself, its site, the way it's described, what it's the way people who've played the game have described it. This game is, in fact, about pro-Hamas and recruitment. That's how it's described. That's the game description. That's its purpose. It is a propaganda piece for Hamas.
So culturally,
so
for culturally, then it needs to be rejected, but not by.
Yes, but hang on. So that's one aspect of it. There is, and that is a cultural issue. Absolutely, it is also about the violence that it is inciting and hoping to further incite, and that's a violation of the First Amendment. Everyone agrees with inciting violence is not protected speech. And that's where this comes to. Now, I get it. If people want to have this game, fantastic. There are other ways to go out and get it. There are other services. You can go direct to the publisher. It's one guy in Brazil. Fantastic. Go to him. Go ahead and get it. I think there's a problem when we allow children, those under 18 and under, who will get access to this game, and couple that with the indoctrination they're getting in schools, and they're suddenly going to turn around like kids in Harvard, like kids at Cornell University, who suddenly say, no, I'm a member of Hamas and I'm going to attack my fellow student. That happened at Cornell because of their indoctrination. I think that breaks. It's no longer entertainment. It's no longer about just saying, I have an idea or this is a fantasy. This is real world.
Well, I think it would be a different situation if you could find that the game developer was using the proceeds from this game to fund criminal organizations or fund terrorist organizations or anything else like that. If you're only in the realm thus far of people role playing, you're on a bad slope.
I get your point. I do, but I think there are some things that we, both as a society and as a country, need to be aware of and need to reject. And yes, I want to address one other thing before I let you guys go further with, because you also mentioned, well, there's attention. I'm bringing attention to it. The attention's already there. The United Kingdom already brought attention to this, and we already saw the spike. Congressman Richie Torres, he already made his statements, and he's repeating his statements because he didn't get enough attention the first time. And so he's already brought attention to this. They've already done it. Now since the genie is out the bottle, the answer is we do need to address it because it's not going back in the bottle. It's already out.
All right, well, you have to also look at it this way too. You know, we talk a lot on the show about hate speech.
Yeah.
You know, and how there actually is no such thing as hate speech. It's just speech that people hate.
True.
And speech that people deny and people don't like.
Yeah.
When you take something like this and you drive it into the underground, You drive it into the black market. You drive it into the shadows. You lose all and complete any of opportunity that you would to be able to monitor who's using it, because you're gonna push it off. If you have this thing where, okay, it's they bring it here, whatever. Well, now you can get a sense of who's playing it. You know what I'm saying? You start getting an idea of who's doing this, who's doing that. It's a lot easier to connect dots with people that you know have registered and bought a license to play the game and be able to monitor anything that they do or be able to track it back. Until and unless you've got some sort of direct connection that this game, because it's essentially what it is a game, and it's probably going to be being played by a bunch of freaking 13-year-old kids who don't know any better, or you're going to have a bunch of anti-Semites in college who don't have the balls to go out and attack somebody in person. So they're going to live vicariously through a game. Until you actually have something of a physical nature where this game is contributed to an actual attack, you're tilting at windmills. You can't point to something and say, causality if there's not been a result.
We've had
the argument. Look, we had the argument going back for dozens of years. Look at Grand Theft Auto. How many people are running hookers down in their cars with Grand Theft Auto? How many people are out there looking for mystery boxes to complete jobs for underground mob bosses? The violence has been prevalent in our society for years and years and years and years. And every time that we make an attempt to try and shut it down or quell it, one of two things happens. The thing becomes more popular and it can't get shut down, or the courts rule that you can't shut it down because you're violating free speech. Now, unless this was a direct funding mechanism,
don't know.
Or unless there's a sheet that says, hey, fill out your name, address, telephone number, and everything, and an Al-Qaeda representative will come by or Hamas representative will come by and recruit you.
Don't know.
Exactly. You don't know.
Nobody knows. We don't know. It's basically brand new. We don't know what's going to happen.
Right. At this point, you're trying to regulate taste. You're trying to regulate decorum. Is it in bad taste? Yes. Is it a breach of decorum? Yes. Is it something horrific? Yes. Is it based in fact? I don't know how accurate these things are or not, but I can tell you that some of the Call of Duty games are directly associated with towns, villages, cities. You know, I mean, you can be somebody bombing Dresden or somebody shooting at the airplanes. You could be somebody, going into the concentration camps or trying to liberate them. You could be either one in these games.
That's over 70 years ago. It's not
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if it's 70 years or 100 years ago. Dead is dead, alive is alive. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, because if it did matter, then if it didn't, it doesn't matter, because if it truly did matter, then we would look like Germany with the Nazis. Anything that is Nazi related in Germany is banned.
Yes, I know.
So it does matter. It does matter whether it's 70 years ago or 100 years ago.
Well, no,
you're still using the mechanisms of government to correct culture, which is not what that's exactly what you were fighting against up to now.
Let me clarify something that needs to be clarified. Congressman Torres hasn't said the government is legislating that. He's asked Valve to do it voluntarily. Now, mind you, it's still government pressure. He is still a member of Congress.
Correct.
But he hasn't put a resolution in. I just want to clarify that point as we're speaking. Is he didn't put in a bill into Congress. He isn't trying to go through Congress.
Neither did the FBI with Facebook or Twitter.
I understand. I'm not saying there's not still government pressure, but I want to be accurate to the situation.
Okay, but even so, to your point, it does matter whether it's 70 years ago, 100 years ago. That whenever you try to use government, whether it's unofficial pressure or whether it's through a resolution or it's through legislation, it's still a misuse of government power. This game this game has to be rejected by the culture. It
I would
has.
hope it would be, yes.
So what needs to happen is this game needs to exist so that it can be publicly derided and it will be abandoned. The same arguments that the same arguments that you're using for this game is the same arguments that cropped up when Postal came out. Do you remember Postal?
Yeah, I remember it. I remember the
Okay.
argument.
So
I'm trying to remember my position on that. I don't remember if I was.
and that was right at the
I had the
time.
same opinion.
That was right at the time that there were a rash of workers that were from the United States Postal
Mhm.
Service that just decided to shoot up the place.
Yeah,
It's
that's
the
where,
same
That's where the term "going postal" comes from. Yeah,
and it's the same argument that was used before on Doom. Right around the Columbine, the Columbine shooting, which was also tied to the Nazis.
Well, I disagree with that. There
So-
is.
So
How
this,
do I explain? I'm trying to explain.
so
And I'm more than willing to say that it's perhaps and likely can be my personal feeling on this, and it's overriding my view. Quite possible. I could be just tone deaf and just go, it's pro Hamas, it's pro terrorism, and I'm just against it. I know I have that viewpoint, but at the same time, I do believe I've been consistent because I think this isn't just hate speech; it is action, and action is what makes the difference.
as much as it may be a call to action, we can't prove that. And that
It is a call to action. By its description, by its wording, its temperament, its creation, its description as a game, its content as it has been updated. It's a call to action.
So if it's a call to action, then it needs to be culturally hamstrung, not government pressurized, because the politics will follow the culture. Generally, if and this is usually 80% of the time, the culture will dictate what follows in terms of legislation and politics. But if we don't, we need to address it, certainly. But if we insist on utilizing government resources to apply pressure to tech companies, then you are perpetrating the exact same thing that was used to censor conservative speech in the last decade.
Somehow I don't see the same. But Frank, you were going to say something. I get your point.
I was going to say, if you want to, like I say, you would have to first show that somebody went and acted on behalf of the game because the game told them to do that, and you have to, and that's a very
really high bar,
steep climb to try and prove. But I'll tell you what, when Maxine Waters gets locked up for inciting violence against conservatives,
well, she should have been,
but she hasn't been.
No.
When the BLM protesters who've been outside of the Manhattan courthouse this week get locked up for inciting that everybody go kill Whitey,
which also should have happened. Okay. Yes, I agree.
Which hasn't happened. Okay, these are people who are telling their followers, who are giving explicit directions. Go out and choke a guy to death.
Mm-hmm.
Go out and be a vigilante. Go out and do this and go out and do that. And there is nothing happening to them. Then it's going to be a very, 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 very hard thing to do, to point to a video game, no matter how heinous the gameplay is, and say, we need to ban this. Because if you're going to ban that, there are 1,000 other things that need to be banned that Congress has not even bothered to look into, such as where are 480,000 missing children.
I understand. And in each of these cases, at the very least, I can say, for me, I believe I am being consistent, because the line I draw, as in the examples you've provided and several of the things we've talked about over the years on this channel and on my channel as well, they're consistent. I believe I'm being very consistent that would I have arrested Maxine Waters? Absolutely. Would I have arrested BLM. Absolutely. Because they are inciting violence. Again, the key, well, yes, I would arrest them. They are inciting violence. They are violating the First Amendment, as I understand it. And I think these are all the same category.
Well,
but
even still,
it's not being acted on. I give you that. Yeah.
Even still, with Maxine Waters' words and these BLM people and your buddy Chuck over there in the Senate and all the rest of these people who have come out and repeatedly called for violence against conservatives, the level of violence that has been perpetrated due to those words has been minimal. So these are people who you can still say, well, it's rhetoric, to use Nancy Pelosi's favorite word. The rhetoric is so bad. It's still, it's a different story than somebody who is amassed 1,000 people in an auditorium or something like that, and they're all true believers. And then that person stands up at the podium and says, now we're all going to go outside and kill everybody that we see. Who's with me? Let's go. And that guy leads the charge, and everybody goes outside and commits an act of violence. That's a clear-cut case of incitement. When you just people that are just talking about it, they're blowing off steam, they're saying stupid shit. Look, people say stupid shit all the time. It's not necessarily criminal. It's not necessarily criminal. It's not until somebody acts on that word, and you can prove that they acted on that word because they were coerced into acting on that word. Because you get people say, well, so-and-so made me do it. Well, how? Well, they said well, that's not enough.
True.
That's not enough. David Berkowitz's neighbor's dog, Sam, would have been euthanized if that were the case.
No, I understand your point. I do. I understand the argument. And trust me, I've been battling with this myself all day as I was going through the story, which is why I think it's an important story to talk about, because it is difficult. It is for me, it's a close one. Look, I understand for you it's not, but for me it's a close one.
No, don't tell me what for me is close.
No. I'm saying in our conversation comparatively, at this moment, us comparing.
See, my thought, like I said, when it comes to terrorism, I got my own scars I deal with. All right, I got my own grief I deal with. All right,
absolutely.
When it comes to this shit. But I also have to consider the fact that when you turn around and use government as the tool, the mechanism to stifle something, it all depends on what shoe is leading the way, the left foot or the right foot, because we've seen the abuse of government being used against us. We've seen it to a degree against people that we disagree with, and we have stood up and said, no, you know what, that's not right. You can't do that. Anytime that you put the auspice of power into somebody's hand, then you got making somebody the arbiter of what's good and what's bad. All right, it's got to be left to the public to decide. It's got to be in the public arena to decide what's good, what's bad, what's acceptable, what's marketable, what they'll buy, what they'll consume, and what they'll use. When you use government to do that, you are putting a burden of power into an organization that already has too much. And it's not going to be that far ahead when somebody turns around and says, you know what? We're going to make a video game about, I don't know. Let's make a video game about Iwo Jima.
There are.
Well,
things.
All right. Well, to the Japanese, who were alive at the time, Americans were the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you have a constituency of Japanese Americans who were around at that time, they're going to look at that game and say, you know what, that's a little sensitive. You're putting yourself in a position. Why all the people that you're killing of Asian descent? Isn't that racial? Isn't that racial? Isn't that this? You're going to put too much. It's too much. It's too much when you start putting the power in the hands of government. Government is fallible because government is people. And not only is it fallible because they're people are ideological. Yeah. So they will turn their focus of banning things instead of what's moral and just into what they hate.
Yeah.
And when you ban
tough.
things that you hate, that's fascism.
Yes.
A better example than the Iwo Jima one, though, would be the game that came out where trans people were encouraged to go out and kill non-trans people. There is a game like that. It's on Steam.
Kind of heard of it. Yes. Kind of. I don't recall that.
But it revolved around, it was in reaction to and revolved around the supposed genocide of the trans people by the shootings that have happened in this country in the different clubs and bars and stuff around the country. So somebody was like, we're being genocided here. We're going to make this game to help people. I see it. Like they put the game out there for people to see it and participate in it in a reaction against that type of behavior. And it flopped. The public rejected it.
Yeah.
The same thing is going to happen with this game.
It already has. This game has been around since 2022.
So you don't need the government to ask Steam to remove it. And like Frank is saying, once you put the power in the hands of government to go after the things that you hate, you are no better than the people that have utilized the same government power to oppress those things that they hate.
I hear what you guys are saying. I understand it. I do understand your point.
How many times have we been through this, Mike? You've been alive long enough to remember the moral panic of the 1980s, right? Satanic panic?
Yeah. Oh,
and then there was the video game panic of the 90s. Moral combat.
I've been on the opposite side of the position I'm making now, which is different, at least to me. And again, it could be I'm not saying I understand each and every one of the arguments you are making. I understand that I have, most likely, I have a bias in the way I am looking at this because I do not support Hamas. And my anger of Hamas existing, of this pro-terrorist organization and this movement in this nation towards it, it colors my view.
I'll tell you what it is, Voss. You have been, because you are one of the only independent journalists out there, you have been the only one out there actively ringing the bell every single day for the Americans that are still being held in captivity by Hamas. You're the only one that's still out there ringing the bell every day about the Israelis, the British, the rest of them that are all being held by Hamas, while everybody else in the world seems to already have forgotten and moved on because another bright, shiny thing happened. You're the only one ringing the bell. You're holding it close. You're holding it close because it's active to you, because you're the only one still following the story. So when you have this, it's a direct assault on everything that you've been doing, and you see it as justification for what these people are doing when you've already proven there was no justification through everything. So it's hitting you harder because you are that deeply emotionally invested in it. And I think, and because you're so close to the story, and like I said, you're the only one ringing the bell, it means more to you from that point of view. Where, listen, I'm not following everything that's going on. I'm a bigger picture guy. You know, I'm just like, just show me where to drop the whole bomb and drop it. You know, I'm not about being so selective. Whereas, you know, you're reporting on it all the time. So it's going to mean that much more to you, but you can't let it cloud your overall judgment as far as the bigger picture of what it's been done to you. It's like we're going to get into the point one day of saying, well, is it going to be okay for, you know, the IRS to target Act Blue if Act Blue didn't do anything? If they didn't do anything wrong, or is it going to be okay?
No. That
right.
because the same thing as with Lois Lerner.
Right. Our side has been victimized for 12 years minimum about how the government has been abusing our side over and over and over and over again. And the whole time that we've been doing it, we have only really had our own side to point examples to and show everybody why it's wrong that you do it like that. Now that we're on the cusp of being able to turn the tide, put an end to that, You have a lot of people on our side that are saying, okay, now that the tide has turned, let's put the screws to the people that put the screws to us. And it doesn't matter if we do it or they do it. It was wrong then, it would be wrong in the future. If we're going to stand for freedom, we're going to stand for the Constitution, it has to be blanketed. And we all have to be protected under that same document, not just selecting who's good and who's bad. And we can't be the arbiter for good and evil when it comes to things like this that don't, if there's not a direct tie where they're saying, okay, the game costs $29 and 25% of the proceeds are going to fund Hamas. It's probably some 20-year-old developer, like you said, living in Brazil, who took somebody's code, altered it to make it look like a more modern version of a different game, and didn't go anywhere with it.
Well, there's more to that, but I know I researched it, but I get the point you're making. I get the point.
He's got 24 people bought his game. He's in debt. He's in debt. I guarantee you the Brazilian government is going to come after him because at some point he took a funding loan from somebody to get this game off the ground, and he's going to wind up going to a Brazilian jail. Going to jail in Brazil ain't fun. No, he's gonna be over there to guarantee you he's gonna be at the statue of Christ the Redeemer tomorrow, begging for forgiveness to try and get out from under the burden that this game has caused him. It's a dead issue. It's dead. And this Democrat who's doing this, I would all right. If he was serious about any of this, he wouldn't.
He's not. No. Let me before you can go there. He's doing this because he's going to run for governor. He's looking for anything that gets attention.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Been very obvious about that.
If this guy was absolutely, and I don't know nothing about it. I don't know who the guy is. You showed the article. If this guy had any cojones and was actually serious about doing anything, he would have introduced the bill. But instead, he's doing it outside of the purview of his office to try and garner support with a certain demographic that he's probably already weak with.
Yes, that is exactly
because
what he's trying to get.
Because he knows damn well when he brings it to Congress, it ain't got no legs. It ain't got no legs. So he's going to try and play it for every ounce of publicity it is. And you know what? And really think about it. He's bringing publicity to an anti-Semitic game that nobody friggin' knows about. So if you wind up getting 10,000 people go out and buy that game at this point and go out and start playing it, it's because he brought it into the light. Because he did it.
Well,
so
he did bring it into the light. There's
right.
no doubt. That's
he's
why
gonna
I
be,
saw it.
Right. He's going to be more responsible for people playing this game and acting out their anti-Semitic fantasies than the developer of the game is. He will.
Absolutely. Yeah. He
so
even
so if you want to know
it wasn't that.
So if you want to know who your bad guy is,
and the Democrats already have demonstrated that they are pro-Hamas. The far left, the far left constituency has already proven that they're anti-Israel and pro-Hamas. So
how much money have we given Hamas in the last 2 years for aid?
Oh God, billions.
Yeah, and my interest in this is the video game industry has already been under assault for the last 20 years, by activists and culturally. And as far as I'm concerned, we the people need to be able to decide what we're willing to play and what we're not willing to play.
And overwhelmingly we do. And I agree with that. Overwhelming, well, we try to. And they keep trying to shove stuff down our throat.
Right.
It keeps failing. Like
so they've tried. They've made overtures to government to try and regulate culture. And that's not how it works. That should not be how it works.
I agree with you.
So from my aspect of this is something where we need to, just as we stood up in the election and said no more of this bullshit, we need to stand up as a people and say no more of this bullshit. You can put it out there, but it's not going to go anywhere because nobody wants it. We understand that it's wrong.
No, I'm not, again, I can't disagree with you guys, but the genie's out of the bottle. And you're right, Frank. Representative Richie Torres, because he obviously I'm covering it, and I know there's got to be other independent media that are covering this, and mainstream video game industry are now going to cover it. Why? Because the congressman's talking about it. Because the congressman's getting attention. He's got over 50,000 views on his comments, and he's making multiple comments on this to get the attention, which means the genie's out, which is why I said, okay, I do want to talk about it because it is out now. It's not going to go.
What state is this guy from?
Richie Torres. He's my congressman, New York 15th district.
All right, look up the Jewish population in the 15th district to see what the number is.
Minimal. That's not who he's going after. He's going after I think he's trying to gain attention. He wants to run for governor. So he needs to show his support for Israel. He needs to try and gather attention of conservatives and Republicans, and obviously distance himself from Harvard, from Columbia, from the left-wing progressive Democrats that he's surrounded by.
Well, unless he's going to write $300 checks to everybody like Hochul's floating around. I don't think
Great. You're going to take $300 from us extra in our taxes and then give it back to us and make it look like you're being magnanimous.
No, she'll take $500 and give us $300.
Yeah, right. God, that lady needs to go so bad.
It's what Andrew Cuomo used to do.
I know, and I hated it when he did it too.
Yeah. They're crazy.
All right, so let's get on to something else that you guys are a little closer to seeing than I am. I am under the impression that you guys have got a rash of unmanned aerial vehicles floating over the skies in the Northeast up there. What the hell is going on there?
No, know anything about that. I know that there have been UAVs that have been flying over several U.S. military bases, and that's been going on for the last year with very little reporting, and we don't know who's doing it. But I haven't heard about it in the Northeast. No.
All over New Jersey, they're talking Staten Island. They've had them flying over the Verrazano Bridge. There's a fleet of SUV-sized drones flying over major areas, the sensitive areas, including a Trump golf course over in Jersey.
That I haven't heard about. I did hear that New York State is actually looking into using UAVs for state troopers. They're using it.
That's revenue right there. That's going to be for raising revenue.
Right. What they're looking to do is they're actually using it to fly over like highways and stuff for traffic patrol and use it for air to ground surveillance so that they can use it to identify like speeding and whatever else, and somehow they're supposed to tie that into the camera system, and then they'll be able to drop the citation right at your house and give you speeding tickets right at your house instead of stopping you on the road.
Yeah, it's revenue
because traffic stops have become dangerous, and it's actually simpler to just let them break the law and then catch them afterwards with modern surveillance. So that's come up, but I haven't heard anything about massive fleets of.
Well, no, I just found several articles about it. It started about approximately 4 days ago, apparently, and
I know Amazon's been talking about running fleets of large drones for deliveries.
No, this is not Amazon. Apparently, one of our congresspersons, I forgot whom it was, said that Iran recently purchased a mothership from China. A mothership drone, which is apparently it's a vessel that can launch hundreds of drones off of this vessel.
So it can launch swarms.
It's controlled from this vessel. And that right now there is an Iranian ship docked not that far off of our coastal waters, just on the other side into international waters. And these drones have been launched from this vessel and are now hovering over sensitive areas in the United States by the hundreds. And people are seeing them. There's video of them all over the place. They're saying they're car-sized drones flying in perfect formation. Nobody can identify them. Nobody knows what they are. Nobody does this. And the government doesn't seem to want to give anybody an answer, except for this one congressman who came out and said what he believes they are. And when they said, well, why isn't anybody shooting them down? It's because, well, they are powered by an unknown fuel source, so it would be very dangerous to shoot down an aerial vehicle with an unknown fuel source over what it could land in potentially a residential area.
They could be loaded with thermite.
Well, there was a report that said that these things were emitting some sort of gases or some sort of toxins in the air. We don't know. The government has not been forthcoming with us, and drone pilots, independent drone pilots, citizens that have like Mavic Pro and stuff like that, all of these really high end. I have a really nice drone that I fly. They're saying that if they get within a certain proximity of this drone thing, their drones fall out of the sky.
Well,
so apparently there's a jamming network that surrounds this flock that if you try to get close enough to it with your own drone, it knocks your drones out of the sky.
There is tech for that. And yeah. I know because a company that I work for develops it for the United States military.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's it. It's just I know that tech exists.
Yeah. I can only say that now I'm looking this up. So I've seen articles from The Guardian talking about this over the last 4 days. The representative you're speaking about, Frank, is Representative Jeff Van Drew out of New Jersey, is the one who actually made the comment about the mothership and an Iranian ship at sea that is coordinating this. Supposedly the Pentagon has said as of today, actually this evening at 5:00 this evening, they were saying that there is no Iranian ship, there is no mothership, and they have no idea about what the drones are or what they're doing, but that he's wrong. Now, if they can't find a ship and they can't collect the drones and can't identify the drones, I don't know how they can say he's wrong because they have no evidence. But they're equivocally, and this is coming from NBC News again, 5:00 tonight. The Pentagon denied this, said, nope, his entire story is completely wrong, but we don't know what they are or where they came from or what they're doing. China, I don't know how you can do that.
China, in the last couple of weeks, China has actually done several demonstrations where they've had thousands of drones in the air at once to do various things. They were doing a demonstration where they did a light show.
They do these whole aerial billboards that take up hundreds of acres in the sky, and they'll use thousands of drones to do it. As a matter of fact, on America's Got Talent, and it's not like me to ever recall anything about a television show, but there was a company out of Texas that is a drone company, and they put on a display for America's Got Talent. They had like 300 drones take off from the roof of a hotel and did this tremendous three-dimensional thing where every single drone lit up in different colors in a different pattern at a certain time, and it's a pre-programmed flight that they all have proximity detectors. They know where they are in relationship to not only themselves but to one another, and they follow a pre-programmed flight path, and they put on this display. China's been doing this for the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, the last time they did the Olympics, China had a dragon in the sky flying overhead that was made of drones.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that this is probably the same kind of formation technology that's used to coordinate all of these drones, except I don't know what they're using it for. Now, are they using it to spy on certain areas because they're saying it's sensitive areas? Are they using this as a fear and intimidation tool? Are they doing something? But the fact is, our government doesn't seem to want to answer for what's going on. Local government from the state with the cities, those state troopers sent up a friggin' helicopter to this thing to see what's going on. And let's not forget, there were 2 separate instances where we were told there's no balloon flying overhead, and there was.
Yeah. It wouldn't be the
So I
first
mean, if
time.
you,
Yeah.
yeah,
It wouldn't be the first
So
time
when-
Pentagon was
that-
lying to our faces.
Yeah, Turkey, China, and India are three of the main countries that have really gone all in on drone tech, both for civilian and military use,
And Iran.
and Iran, right? So, and they're able to be made very cheaply. In fact, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has seen the most testing of drone combat that has ever been perpetrated in history. And
Yeah, they're
it's
rewriting the way the military is operating is being changed by the drones being used. Those are Iranian drones being used in the Ukraine, and it's resulted in, for the Marine Corps, they've gotten rid of all their armor units, the tanks that Marines used to use. They've gotten rid of the entire tanker division. It's gone.
yeah, I mean it's
drones take them out.
the drone the drones are cheap to produce, and they can have a payload that is enough to melt through the steel armor of a tank with thermite and then just burn the insides. So drones are rewriting the way we think of military strategy even. I mean, and that's scary.
Yeah, I just, if there's no other reason to doubt the fact that the Pentagon is denying something they can't confirm or deny, how can you tell the
yeah,
congressman?
don't tell me what something isn't if you can't tell me what it is.
Yeah. Well, they can't say what it is or is not. They don't know. The Pentagon's saying we don't know what it is, but it
Right.
can't
Well,
be
that's
what
what the next right, and that's would be what the next question that I would ask is, well, what measures are you taking at the moment to actively find out what these things are? Have you gone up and approached this thing? Have you had that Independence Day moment where you have the helicopter with the big lights go up there and fly up and go flashing signals at them? You got a guy sitting on the top of the Devil's Peak up there where you're playing the Close Encounters theme song. What are you doing to find out? Don't just tell us we don't know what they are, but we're investigating. How are you investigating? What are you doing?
The most that I'm seeing that is coming from the government at this moment, according to Sabrina Singh, who is a representative for, I believe this is the Defense Department, the Pentagon. Nope, Defense Department. This is from the Defense Department. Sabrina Singh, again quoted by NBC. They're continuing to monitor developments, and they
Oh, that's typical government doublespeak.
that's it. Yeah, they're monitoring developments.
Yeah, and you know what the monitoring?
Jeff Andrew is saying, shoot it down.
And that's
He's saying,
and that's
let's use government resources, shoot it down, and then we'll know what it is. And the government's saying, oh, no, we can't do that, but don't worry about it.
well, the developments are the fact that they put up a website for people to call in with sightings where they could upload the videos of what they've seen and the location of where they've seen it. That's what they're monitoring. They're using the citizens to tell them, hey, listen, got a lot of humming over the house over here and a swarm of friggin' UAVs. You guys want to check it out? I noticed they didn't try it over in any of the southern states because I guarantee you, Billy Joe Bob would be out there with his skeet gun, looking to take something down, and I'd be sitting on the porch with him, going, "No, a little to the left, your windage is off."
Yeah. Of course, it's over New Jersey and New York, the two of the most highly regulated anti-Second Amendment states in the country, which definitely makes it easier to fly a drone. I don't like the way that's happening. It's
No, there's way too much to this. Now, I told Lori the other day as we were talking about it, I said, you know what? I said, this is probably just some big, stupid promotional thing that some Hollywood movie company is putting out there. And while they're flying these things around for a week, at some point, they're going to light up into this big billboard to advertise the coming attractions. Matter of fact, there was a movie, the 4400 or something like that, or they were talking, the movie was about revelations, about people, going up to heaven and all the rest of that. And they took a bunch of mannequins and strapped them to drones, and they had them people like flying up to heaven with these things a couple of years ago.
No, don't
Simulate the rapture.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
the rapture. Yeah, they were trying to simulate the rapture with drones, and they're getting people like, what's going on? Then they had people dressing people up as mannequins up as Superman and flying them around when they had the Justice League movie coming out. There's always somebody doing something stupid out there for promotional purposes. And I said, this is probably just some movie hoax, that they're coming up with to try and do something, and nobody knows what's going on. And the movie company would rather pay the fine than let the cat out of the bag. But I don't know.
I don't know. It's interesting. But it's also interesting because it isn't big enough news. Like, you heard about it. I think Jan has mentioned she saw something about it, but I didn't hear about it. Dow didn't hear about it. Most of the sources that I'm looking at, it was not an emphasized story. It wasn't a big story. So they're keeping it relatively low key. It's not that it's not being talked about. It's just being de-emphasized, which is the latest way of suppression is, oh, well, you can't say we didn't put it out there. We just didn't spread it to anybody, which is why, again, folks, why you need to like, share, subscribe, because they do the same thing on YouTube videos, on Facebook videos, on social media. They just de-emphasize it so no one can find it, even though it may be accurate.
This is a little harder for them to hide because there's been so many thousands and thousands of eyewitnesses about it. My old friend Jackie's texting Lori every 2 hours with an update from Jersey, where these things are now.
Wow.
They're tracking. They have groups of people in Jersey that are currently tracking them, following them around, and saying because they're apparently visible the daytime or nighttime.
Huh.
Well,
if they're visible at night, that means they must be running some sort of lights.
Yeah.
And if they were there for a nefarious purpose, they wouldn't be running lights.
Well, that's the thing. If they're running lights because they want to make sure that an oncoming vehicle will avoid them. Because I'm looking at them, they are
whatever they're trying to see.
Yeah, there's 4 post lights on these things. There's 4 lights on each corner. It's a vertical light. So if you would have had a 4 prop drone, you have 1 light bar right underneath each prop. So every one of the 4 sides has got a bright light that shines out from it. There's also flashing lights from underneath it. However, I also did notice there's port and starboard lights on them. So they're not. I don't think the aliens came all this way with drones and then figured out our port and starboard system. For what that is. So it has to be now. For those who don't know about aviation or navigation, your port and starboard lights are what you see on your aircraft and what you see on boats. Your navigation lights. Your port is red and your starboard is green. Depending upon, now I'm in the camera backwards, so it's hard to demonstrate, but depending upon what way you see the lights, what color is on what side of the vessel that you're seeing, gives you the ability to determine whether the vessel is headed towards you or whether the vessel is headed away from you.
Right.
All right. So depending upon which way the lights are, you know if it's coming or going. That's what those things are for. These things all have those lights on them. And they also have a white beacon light on them with what they call a bow light. What would be a bow light? It's a white light on that too. But other than that, I mean, I can't identify what nature of drone it is because all I can see is what the light sources emanating are. Yeah. But then again, people also say, "Oh, they're as big as an SUV." Listen, you get something up in the air 100 feet away from you. You no longer have a frame of reference to tell how big or small something is, unless you know for a fact what the item is that you're looking at is. If you can identify a B-29 in the air and you know the size of a B-29, then you could give it an estimate of how high it is altitude wise. But if you're seeing somebody flying a different kind of aircraft that you're not familiar with, you can't really judge how big or small that aircraft is or how high it is. And that goes for anything that's in your field of vision. Unless you've got something to contrast it with, you don't know what the size is. So these people that are saying, oh, these are SUV-sized drones. An SUV, you're talking 18 feet. You're talking an 18-foot box in the sky for something like that.
Yeah.
Now, you might have a leg span that goes out that far, but then the body of the drone itself is no bigger than a toaster.
Yeah.
Drones are not necessarily known for a lot of power to weight ratio, especially for something that's going to stay aloft for hours on end. It has to be very light in order to sustain a flight for that length of time.
Yeah.
The heavier it is, the more power it consumes, the less time it has to be up in the air. And people say, oh, well, we don't know what kind of fuel it could be using. Well, batteries don't change weight depending upon how much they're depleted. They're charged or they're not charged. They weigh the same either way. Gasoline engine, if you want a gas engine to stay up in the air for 8 hours, it has to bring 8 hours worth of fuel with it. It's heavier when it takes off than it is when it's close to running dry. You're only going to have X amount of time in either way, but for these to be gasoline-operated drones,
the noise would be higher.
They would be, the volume would be loud, and I don't think anybody's got gasoline drones. They wouldn't make for an efficient system.
The only thing I could think of is if they were using a new type of battery. There's a company out there that makes a scalable atomic battery. It's called nanonuclear, and what they use is I wouldn't say it's a prototype now. They're several years old, but basically it's a industrial diamond casing that is surrounding nuclear fuel. Basically, it's the waste from your reactors. And what they found is they developed a battery on the around the waste. As it breaks down, it recharges itself. So it's not an indefinite flight, but it does slowly recharge itself as it's in motion or as it's in use. So it doesn't.
You're also talking, but you're also talking about something radioactive.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, which is going to require a certain amount of shielding.
Yeah.
To keep it shielded is a certain amount of weight. A lot of it.
The industrial diamond casing that they have developed actually blocks the radiation. So
it's adding weight. It's adding weight.
It's adding weight, but you should see the scale of some of these. They're almost the size of what you would use in your BIOS for your computer.
And
the output wouldn't be enough to run a drone on a battery that size. So they would have to scale it up. But I don't know what that would do if it added weight.
I don't know. Pete's asking if these things have lights, wouldn't that mean they have to be registered with the FFA? Well, Pete, my drone would have to be registered with the FFA because I'm a law-abiding citizen. I would also need to get a drone license in order to fly it. But if these things are coming from a foreign entity, especially one with nefarious purposes, I don't think giving a shit about the FFA is on the top of the list. I don't think. And listen, the FFA. All right, my drone, I'll give you for an example. My drone is about a foot across, wing prop tip to prop tips, about a foot across. Mm-hmm. Only it weighs less than a pound. This thing normally has like a 6,000 foot ceiling height to it, and it can fly out like 3 miles from my point of view, from where I am. However, unless I register the drone with the FFA, my controller, I have to get in, log on to the controller so it knows the drone. The controller knows whether or not I've registered with it. So it locks in my maximum ceiling, and it locks in the length in which I can fly out for distances. because it says, well, if you don't have that, you don't have your license, or you don't have this, you don't have that, you can't be allowed to fly this thing into commercial airspace. And the controllers themselves have got GPSs in them, where I've actually tried to go up and fly it up a little off the ground to practice, and you're in a no-fly zone because you're under the flight path of an airplane, and stuff like that. Sensitive areas won't let you take off. But if you own the technology and you own the drone and you own the transmission, terminal from how this thing is controlled, you can do whatever you want with it. There's nobody that can stop you. I mean, there's ways to defeat this my drone, to be able to do whatever I'd want with it, and nobody would be able to know any different.
Right.
But there's a million ways around these things. I mean, some of these drones you can get from Amazon that cost you $60. They little tiny little drones, got a little camera on it. They go up like 200 feet. They fly around. They're not subject to any sort of regulation because they're below a certain size.
Yeah.
They below a certain size. The controller doesn't know how big the drone is. So if you use that same controller on a larger drone and you just reprogram them so they could talk to one another, you can do whatever you want. You can fly a drone that don't have no lights, don't have anything, any sensors or anything on it. This drone technology is bad news for a lot of people. They have assassination drones out there. Have you seen these things?
Oh yeah.
They're the size of a friggin' hummingbird. They fly at 60 miles an hour. They have facial recognition software programmed into them. You show the drone the picture of the guy you want to go kill. You throw it up in the air, and a half hour later, he finds him in the city and he flies into his face and blows his head off.
Yeah.
This is a scary world. And you see the Ukrainians, well, not Ukrainians, the Ukraine.
Yeah, the Ukrainians. They're
using these
crazy.
They're using these drones. Let me tell you, I don't understand how. Listen, I don't give a shit what side of the fence you're on as far as this war is concerned. When you've got a guy laying in a ditch and he's obviously wounded pretty badly, and he's laying in a friggin' ditch, he's bloody, he doesn't have anybody around him. He's scared out of his mind. He's crying. He doesn't want to friggin' be there in the first place. And you drop grenades on the guy while he's waving a flag from a drone, and you put it up as part of your pro-war propaganda piece on Ukrainian television, and it gets disseminated all over the internet. You just broadcast a fucking war crime.
Yeah.
And people are getting way too casual with how easy it is to kill people.
Yeah.
Well, look at this. And I wanted to talk about it. The shooter, the CEO shooter, United Healthcare shooter, and look at the reaction the public's had about that. They're cheering him on. They're upset with the McDonald's and the worker for turning in the person supposedly, and that's another issue I have with it. But supposedly the shooter.
There's a couple of issues.
There's
a whole lot going on with this thing that we're not being told about.
Well, I don't think it's the shooter. To start with, I don't think that's. I think that's. He may be a scapegoat. He could be a lookalike, but he's not. Based on the facial features that we were able to compare to the video that we've seen,
and his hands,
the actions, the way he got caught, the fact that we had the backpack in Central Park, but he got caught with the backpack in Pennsylvania, and he had and you were describing the firearm he was using, but now it's 3D printed. There's a lot of little details that if you've been paying attention to the news, in terms of the photos, in terms of the logic and thinking behind this. The guy's been in New York City for 10 days. Not one photo of him anywhere in the middle of Manhattan. Not one photo shows his face, except he took his mask off well in sight of a camera inside a hotel one time. That doesn't sound like our boy. Doesn't sound like the methodical individual that we've seen do everything else. And then he goes to Pennsylvania, not further away. He just goes straight to Pennsylvania, and he's hanging out in a McDonald's and he's acting all nervous. Did that guy look like he was nervous for 10 days plus the shooting? Did anything about him indicate any kind of nervousness? And then there's the sudden YouTube, his YouTube channel suddenly has this announcement coming up, 60 seconds until the announcement. Wait for next time. That's the announcement. Wait for the next thing. I'm in jail. No, that doesn't make sense. None of that makes sense in terms of psychology or the methodology of the person we saw in that video, purposefully being recorded, purposefully marking the bullets, purposefully with an exit plan, who is unseen everywhere else. I do not believe this guy is the shooter. I think this is a patsy. I think this is the one they're going to use as the example. I don't think it's the shooter.
Before we go into that any further, Jan actually asked us if we had seen that Ray resigned from the FBI.
Yeah, but
I don't know why he resigned. I haven't been able to look into it, but I imagine it has something to do with cash.
Because no, it's because if he stayed there and Trump took over and they decided to call Ray in to testify, Trump could order him to testify.
Yeah, and he does want to be in an environment. I mean, all the Biden people are running for the hills. Why would he be the only Biden guy still in place? Run for the hills too. He's retiring, not now. He retires. Biden's gone. He's gone. Shocking. Not like he was going to keep his job anyway. But
when Billy Boy Clinton was on The View and said, well, I'd be open to the idea of a pardon for Hillary.
I don't watch The View.
Oh, man.
Yeah, all of these people that are open to pardons, but I could swear that none of them did anything illegal. I thought that's what we were told. For all these years.
Yeah. Why do you need?
Hillary was never going to be. Hillary would never be convicted or tried under the what she did. That was the excuse. Not that she did. Not that she did not do anything illegal. That she was not going to. That no one would bring a case against her.
No. It was his words at the time where he listed every single one of her crimes and the nature of the crime by definition of the law. And then Comey said, but she didn't have the intent, which is not a component of any charge that she is guilty of. Every charge he went through, intent is not required. But he said because there wasn't an intent, which requires him to read her mind, which could not happen, then she therefore is innocent.
Well,
so he dropped it.
Well, just so I understand the whole pardon thing. But when you're going to make a pardon, there should really be a list of the crimes that you're guilty of that you're being pardoned for.
Should be.
Not just a matter of saying
he did it for Biden did it for Hunter.
And it's wrong because
not in totem, but he did include some of the crimes for which Hunter was going to be pardoned.
He covered every crime.
No, he covered everything. Anything that was covered under the last 12 years.
Yeah, but he made specific references.
Well, he made reference to them and
then the broad. Right. That's why I said he did
because he had to make reference to the ones that he was already indicted and convicted on. And then had to use those as a way of associating them with, because how did those crimes come to light? Because of the laptop. Well, everything else on the laptop that he could be pardoned for, he has been pardoned for. Now, the question is whether or not we ever find out about, I still would like to know who the underage girl is in the photographs that were on the laptop.
Never know about that.
Where is she? Because Hunter Biden could have very well been issued a pardon for murder.
Might have been.
He could have very easily killed that young girl in that video to keep her from talking. We don't know. And you know what? You can't do nothing about it if I say that that's a possibility. Because now if you're going to prove that you say that Okay, I'm saying maybe it's a possibility and you want to sue me over it. Well, where is she? Where is
Probably
she?
less likely that she was like off, and more likely that she
What
was.
what does
No,
he
we
have
can't say
to?
that. We can't say
What
that
does
for
he
sure.
have to worry about now? What does he have to worry about to come clean with anything? He's gotten a pardon for anything, for everything. Come clean, Hunter. Come clean. Where is the little girl that was half naked in your video on your laptop? Where is the P4 Storm
The other,
firearm that was in the video? Because you were only charged for the Colt revolver. Where's the P4 Storm that you had in your naked photograph? Where's that gun, Hunter?
Yeah, but you're paying attention to details, and we're not supposed to pay attention to details. It's the same thing with the CEO shooter. It's the details that don't match up. We're not supposed to pay attention to that.
Well, you see, here's why he can't talk about anything on that, because his daddy could only give him a pardon for federal crimes,
right? Because
not state crimes. And because a lot of the state crimes that are on that laptop are probably the kind of things that have, I don't know, a very lengthy period of time in which the person can be prosecuted for them, we might actually get somebody in that state with the balls enough to go after him.
Not in New York.
Because now he can. Well, no, but in Delaware, we might.
Biden's too well connected, and so are Democrats in Delaware. It's New York.
Well, here's how another way we can do it. All right, the contents of the entire laptop, including location stamping, are all a matter of congressional record. If anything that's on that laptop can be listed back as a state crime and where it was documented in a state other than, okay, say one of those videos was filmed in, I don't know, Pennsylvania. Maybe one of those videos was filmed in Connecticut. Maybe one of those videos was filmed in South Carolina. We don't. Well, you know what? They're going to be date and time stamped in there with the location information. So if anything that's on that video can be shown to have been committed in a state where you have somebody who has a prosecutorial prudence to say, you know what, I'm going to go after this son of a bitch, they can do it.
Yes,
it might.
But at that point, it's crossing state line. I know the argument is, and this is similar to the wiretap laws. So we go to the meta information inside the computer, showing where that took place. If it took place across the state line, then that becomes like wiretapping. It becomes federal at that point because it transferred and went over different state lines. And then it becomes federal, which he has a pardon, and therefore he's out. I don't know if the state at that point could step in, even though it's South Carolina.
If you can find evidence of a crime that was committed in any state that is a state level crime, that state will be able to prosecute them. Whether or not they would prosecute him is entirely different. If there's evidence of a crime committed on that thing where it began and ended in a particular state, and you've got a prosecutor that would be hell-bent to go after him, the pardon ain't going to help him if it's a state crime.
Yeah.
The only thing that would make it a federal crime is if it was a crime in the commission that crossed state lines. Then you say it's a federal thing. I just want to know where this kid is.
You're never going to find out.
I want to know where this kid is. That's what I want to know.
You can't find 486,000 kids. What do you mean they're going to find one?
They absolutely will actively not find that girl. Never going to find her. Not alive, not dead, not nothing. You will never. That girl is gone. I don't know whether that's a permanent negative or just a into the ether disappeared kind of thing with a bag full of cash. I don't know, but you will never hear from her again.
One day it will be nice if some methods were utilized. but that's beside the point.
Yeah. By the way, since I did bring it up about the CEO,
Yeah.
do you guys agree with me? Disagree with me? I mean, we don't have to go into detail.
I don't trust the story. I was looking at the picture of the guy in the mask with his hands,
Mhm.
and looking at his hands and comparing them with the person that they're saying is the accused. They don't match. Like the guy I saw behind the mask looked Eastern European. Like he looked
No structured brow.
yeah. So all you can see is this.
Yeah.
And he had the, like, I'm Polish, right? Polish descent. I've got broad cheekbones. This guy looked like he was Eastern European like me. Like he's got the broad cheekbones, and his hands. His hands are huge. They're big hands. And the backs of his hands, they almost look like that of somebody in their mid 40s, right?
Over.
Early to mid 40s. This little Luigi guy, he does not have that kind of structure at all, and his hands are wrong. I know that
Well,
I know that sounds
Well,
ridiculous, but I'll tell you, when I was a cashier for a little while at a gas station, one of the things that used to happen is we would undergo stings every now and again from the state police for ID checks, right? And a lot of people would a lot of times customers would come in and there would be like another cashier on or whatever, and they'd go to sell an ID restricted item like cigarettes or something to these sting operators. And so there were a couple times where I'm like, stop, don't sell to them. And they're like, why? And I'm like, that's probably a fake ID because that person is too young. And they're like, well, how can you tell? And I'm like, the hands. You look at, if you want to tell somebody's age, you look at their hands. Like if they're like worn, the skin has a certain color to them, a certain texture to them. You can always tell somebody's age by their hands. If they've done a lot of hard work, if they've done, if they've lived a while, you can tell that because their hands are usually worn and they have certain pallor to them. There's certain defining features to your hands that you just cannot mask when it comes to age. So yeah, that his hands are wrong, and that to me tells me that it's not the same guy.
Well, what I can tell you from what I've seen is that they released the photographs the following day of their person of interest, and they say that the photographs were taken just shortly before or after the shooting took place.
Mhm.
The guy in the photographs wearing a different jacket and has a different backpack.
That's also very.
The pockets are different on the
Color.
the jacket,
Color,
and then the color of
material.
the color of the backpack changed from gray to black.
Yeah.
Light gray,
Now,
jet black.
Now I will say this: if the guy is knowledgeable of what I call gray man tactics, which is something that the CIA has used before and trained people in. What you're basically doing is, if you have a backpack or something on, there's ways to mask yourself and hide in plain sight. You take it, you as you're walking, you take your backpack and you are able to reach in. You can grab things to change clothes on the fly. Like I actually saw this demonstrated at one point when they were doing.
It's even easier than that, though. He's in New York City in Manhattan, one of the most
Right.
populated cities
So
in the world.
He could
As he's walking,
lens.
just drop something. He's a brand new man.
Right.
Open up the jacket. All he has to do is open up the jacket, take off the mask, and put on a ball cap, and he's a brand new man. You'd never know it was him. It's New York City, Manhattan, and there is no positive idea of him. They have no way of. I absolutely do not believe. And again, the people we have been shown are supposed to be him. There are key indicators, whether it's the hands, the eyebrows, the jacket, the make and model and texture of the jacket, the color of the bag. There are so many inconsistencies that we're supposed to overlook on someone who is methodical, whose every action was very methodical and calculated and considered, and he makes this kind of mistake.
And
I do not believe it.
Then there's the indiscrepancies of the bag being found next to the CEO with monopoly money in it. That was a report.
there's a report of that. There's the fact that they found a bag in Central Park, which theoretically, or at least the reporting at the time said the gun was inside there. So how can he have another bag? If the bag was found in Central Park and it had a gun, how do you have another bag found in Pennsylvania with the gun?
Right. Yeah, it's just there's too many inconsistencies with this. It looks something like an asset was drummed up to present to the people, and the actual killer is gone.
Yeah, it was a
That
hit. It
yeah,
was a hit. The
that's
actual
what it
killer.
looks like to me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not an espionage guy, but to me, that's what it looks like.
No, I think that's exactly what it is, because he was a professional, and he's good enough. I'm speculating here. He's obviously good at what he does from what
Yeah.
we could observe about him. He's obviously, if he's good enough to do this, good enough to be that much of a specialist, he might be protected from on high, especially since this case, yet another reason. So Boy Soy out of Pennsylvania, how did he know the exact route and schedule of a CEO that he's never met? How would he know his exact route, the exact door is he coming out of, what time he's coming out of them, that he's going to be there on specific days? How would he know all these details and be able to map out all the cameras? Because, your average 20-something isn't paying attention to deep espionage. I'm sorry, it doesn't add up. It just doesn't. But, now we're going to be labeled, oh my God, conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. It's only a conspiracy because things don't add up, and no one's provided a logical answer to tie up these loose ends. And there's a lot of them. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. But there was, there was that. Let me ask you guys, did you, and this is probably a yes or no, but we were talking about Afghanistan earlier. We were talking about international politics. Did you hear Blinken today in Congress?
No, I missed it. I haven't been able to check anything.
I was listening to it all day. So, do you remember September 1st? Talk about, Frank, you're talking about, do I remember these things? And I'm close to it. September 1st, actually, August 18th, 2021, George Stephanopoulos asked Joe Biden on ABC News if there's any Americans that are in Afghanistan after you start doing the evacuation, what are you going to do? Joe Biden says, I will stay and get every American out. September 1st, Joe Biden leaves Afghanistan and tells the American people he's leaving behind somewhere between 100 and 200 Americans, but we will get them eventually. That same day, Blinken says, well, it's actually less than 200 and we'll get them out. Today in Congress, Blinken tells everyone, we got out 500 Americans. We got 500 Americans out. Well, first of all, you just admitted you lied to the American people. You knew there were 500 people and you got them out, but you told America it's less than 200 or 100. The numbers kept fluctuating. I followed them for 6 months until they stopped giving out the numbers. So you lied to the American people. Here's the other thing. But we know from Antony Blinken speaking to Congress, March 23rd, 2023, that there were 175 Americans who were being held by the Taliban and being tortured. We also know at the same exact time, on March 23rd, 2023, that 975 Americans had been freed or brought out of Afghanistan. So not only did he lie, not only did Joe Biden lie in 2021, they then thought we didn't notice when they got caught in the lie in March of 2023, and he's lying again through his teeth to Congress today with yet another set of numbers. And by the way, people are wondering why March 23rd, 2023, how could you possibly know that? Okay, 175 Americans held by the Taliban, Washington Times. It's their article. It is a confirmed credible source. So yes, we know this. It's insane. It's insane to me. And he's smug as hell telling people, oh, well, you just don't understand. Or you don't know. We do know. They just keep lying. It's very upsetting to me. It really pisses me off.
Well, did you expect any honesty?
At this point, yes, because they failed. They were wrong. They've been proven wrong. There's evidence of them being wrong. It's documented. Yeah, come clean. Yes, there's 5,000 Americans. They left them.
It doesn't pay for them. It doesn't pay for them to come clean now when they're so close to their golden parachutes.
That's why we expect them to. What are we going to do? It's less than a month. We got less than a month before they're gone.
Yeah, they want to make themselves have as a good a public image as they possibly can at the moment right now, and be all smile and razzle dazzle so they can get their Defense Department jobs come January.
I guess because they definitely were trying to throw Trump under the bus. It was Trump's fault. It was all Trump's fault because we had a firm date. We had to be out by March 31st of 2021. Yeah, but you didn't leave until September 1st. So saying that we were locked into this date, you weren't locked into the date. You didn't leave on March 31st, 2021. So you weren't locked into the date, which means you're not locked into the agreement. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. If you weren't locked into the date because you didn't leave, then it's not an agreement you're bound by. Again, this should be simple. This should not be hard to figure out. It should be straightforward.
Guys, I hate to bounce, but my son came up and told me that I punctured a tire, so I have to go out and change the tire.
No, good job.
All right, Dave. All right, Dave. Fancy boy Bob.
Yeah. What happened with that?
What?
I don't like white chocolate.
All right, well, listen, I'm gonna wrap things up too because I got 3 dogs standing over here looking at me. They all want to go outside, and I am friggin' exhausted. But again, listen, if you guys remember, please go to thegundys.com and find us in Top Voices of the Two-Way community and vote for us. Go to L1F.us, find the latest article about the Gundys and who's been nominated. There's an entire list of people that we really hope you throw your weight and support behind. Good people, good companies, and, they give a shit about you, same as we do. And until next week, we're going to sign off and say, you guys be safe and shoot straight. Vass, any last words?
Keep your eye out because government's lying. God, and they don't care that you're catching them.
Yep.
Don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Beretta.
Don't do it. Who sang it? Who sang the theme song for Beretta?
Oh, that I don't remember. I remember it's Beretta.
I just remember
Sammy Davis Jr. My God, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves.
Oh yeah. I can hear it. I heard it in my head.
Keep your eye on the sparrow. All right.
I will have to look that up and listen.
It's a great song.
It is.
Great song.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Sammy Davis Jr. Was there ever anybody any cooler than Sammy Davis Jr.?
Oh, he was a badass in his day.
Him and Dean Martin. I could have done without Frank. I could have done awesome. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis, the coolest cats ever. The two of them. Oh, man. The best of the best. All right, kids. We'll catch you next week. Love you guys.